The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
Welcome from the General Assembly and the City of Richmond. I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports and Comcast. And a very warm welcome to our guest delegate Mike Webert, representing the 18th District here in Virginia. The House of Delegates, I think you have, all of Rappahannock, parts of Warren, Fauquier, and Culpeper.
Yes, sir.
I believe.
It's a beautiful district.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit about your constituents and how the economy is going in the district that you represent.
Fortunately for my district, our economy, depending on where you are, is actually very good. Fauquier County has a very low unemployment rate compared to the rest of the state, as does Warren and Culpeper. They're a little bit higher than Fauquier, and Rappahannock, being as rural as it is, it's a beautiful district, and for the most part, it's a pretty rural district, with the exception of the city center, which is Warrenton, and then I've got a little bit of the town of Front Royal as well. So mostly, our biggest industry, as with the state, is agriculture, and it's just it's a gorgeous part of the state, and my colleague Delegate Jackson Miller calls it the most beautiful district, even though he's a little bit partial to his. But it's absolutely beautiful, and we have a lot of commuters as well, which I think is part of the reason we have low unemployment. Is we have a lot of folks that work in Northern Virginia. Some of the employment centers there, as well as some folks that work for the federal government as well. So I think that's one of the reasons why we have relatively high unemployment. But,
and of course, you bring a special expertise in terms of the rural part of your district. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, I'm a farmer by trade, and I run my family farm, which is a 3,500-acre operation. We grow corn and soybeans, and we're a seed stock Angus and Hereford producer, and we sell our bulls nationwide. So it's kind of easy to be in touch with the district when you're in touch with your district every day with what you do for a living. Just from the cattle standpoint, my great-grandfather started our local livestock exchange, and I sit on the board, and so it's nice to be in touch with my constituents on every single day just because of what I do for a living. And it's just there's a couple of us, right? Matt Ferris and Barry Knight, and folks tend to forget that the American farmer is possibly the most efficient manufacturer on the planet. We produce more food for more people every single year, and we also are America's first businessmen. I mean, if you look at the makeup of our first House of Burgesses back in the day, most of it was farmers. So we're also the kings of foreign trade as well.
And I think this is your second full year in the General Assembly. How have you adjusted, and what have been some of the biggest surprises?
How have I adjusted? I think the biggest thing about being in the General Assembly is creating relationships with your colleagues, because each of us representing 80,000 people, we have, even though, for instance, Ed Scott and I have very similar districts, we still end up having slightly different agendas because of our constituents, and we've got to work together so that we can accomplish things. And developing those relationships was a big thing for me last year, and I developed some very good ones. To lead off, my fellow colleagues Chris Head, Mike Watson, and David Ramadan and I started the Business Development Caucus. And we looked around, and there was a caucus for everything. There was a Northern Virginia caucus, there was a conservative caucus, there's even the anti-caucus caucus. And we said, but there's nothing to facilitate business and develop business, and all of us come from different backgrounds. Chris is in healthcare, Mike Watson is in technical engineering and a bunch of other things, as well as David Ramadan's in international franchising, and then I'm involved in agriculture. And
a number of your new members to this caucus were freshmen last year, like you, as I understand it.
Yes, a number of them are freshmen, as well as we've gotten some some good leadership from Terry Kilgore and Joe
Mm-hmm.
May, who immediately jumped on board and said, "We really like what you're doing." Ed Scott is another perfect example. I work closely with him. But we formed these relationships, and by doing this, and it is bipartisan. We have Mark Keem and Onsley Ware and a couple others that have joined. By forming these relationships and this caucus, we're able to focus on the Commonwealth as a whole, but business development. And it is a nonpartisan group where our goal is strictly to help business in the Commonwealth.
And maybe the biggest surprise was that there was no such
Yes.
caucus when you were
Yes, and I think if you look at the freshman class last year that had been elected, I think 14 out of the 16 were small business people, 2 were lawyers. So I think it's a tribute to the voter and to the constituents of the Commonwealth as to what they wanted to see coming into the House, and I think it's paid off. I mean, we've been able to. We had 6 roundtables throughout the state, one in Culpeper, one in Danville and Ashburn and Richmond and Hampton Roads, and we also partnered with the governor's office. So we had members of the governor's staff, Secretary Chang and Peter Sue, and a couple others came to every single roundtable.
And these roundtables, besides those public officials and yourselves, consisted of small businessmen?
Small business owners. That's what we wanted. We had over 130 different business owners between all of the roundtables. And what we did was, Delegate Head moderated these, and what we did was he would stand up and say, for the next hour and a half, if you were a legislator and you could either pass a law or remove a law or something that would help facilitate your business, we just want to hear what it is.
Sort of like wave a magic wand.
Wave a magic wand, and then we didn't say anything. We helped facilitate the conversation, but we were there to listen. And when you sit in a room with, in Culpeper, we had 2 senators and 5 delegates or 7 delegates and Secretary Chang, and you have a room full of business owners, and they start talking about things that are hurting their business and things, and then we started seeing trends. For instance, one of the bills that I'm carrying that we're actually in the process of working on through into next year is my workers' comp EMR bill. Folks were pointing out that third party at fault accidents, their EMR was going
Now, what
up.
is EMR?
Essentially what it is your insurance rating based on the number of incidences that you have.
Okay.
So, for instance, if I'm a construction company and I've got a gentleman on the way to work gets hit, T-boned or rear-ended, and it's not his fault, because workers' comp has paid out, my EMR automatically goes up.
I see.
And if I'm bidding for jobs, certain folks look at that EMR rating, and if it's too high, they won't use my company, even though it's not my fault. So we're working with the SEC. This year
That's the State Corporation
the State
Commission.
Corporation Commission,
Okay.
and we're working with them throughout this year and into next year to see what we can do. And we're going to focus on auto this coming year. And then we had a couple of instances where the home daycare centers, they were complaining that the localities were saying, hey, if I'm a caregiver and I've got a couple of children, the county was making my children count towards the care that I was giving.
I see.
And so one of the bills that I carried said you really can't do that. And while it's just a small bill, or a small portion, the couple of slots that caregiver can now give or use, that's another two moms or dads that can enter the workforce and help improve Virginia's economy. So overall, it was a great experience. My colleagues and I, Chris Head's carrying another bill. We just had Mike Watson has a workers a tax credit for worker development, workplace development that we believe is going to make it through the House. We'll see if it makes it through the Senate. But all in all, by working on these relationships, we're working for the Commonwealth, and it has been a very positive experience.
Great. I also think you have a bill relating to Buy Virginia.
Yeah.
that's going to help to facilitate
Yeah.
things.
Unfortunately, that bill is still in a work in progress as well. We've taken on a number of bills that have that in a short session are very hard to get
Sure.
everything done. And what we've done with that particular bill is looked at what we wanted to accomplish with that bill. And what we wanted to really accomplish was to give Virginia manufacturing an opportunity to bid on a lot of jobs, local jobs, any time where there's a procurement, we want to give a Virginia manufacturer the opportunity to bid and still give the locality or whomever's using those state dollars the ability to be a steward of the tax dollars and go with the lowest bidder when they can. And so what we did was we focused on Ron Villanueva's bill, which is 1823, I believe, and his bill basically stated that all the localities have to put their procurement bids or jobs up on the general procurement website, so that way manufacturers across the Commonwealth can have an opportunity to bid, not just the little regional ones as well. So hopefully that'll help a little bit. So we're really focusing on that one. It got through the House and now it's over to the Senate, and we're adamantly supporting that too. And that's the great thing about the Business Development Caucus is we're looking at bills like Ron's and mine and saying, okay, not only does that bill have one patron or a couple of co-patrons, but you end up with 27 folks that get behind these bills, and it tends to give them a little bit more weight, which is good.
So how often does this caucus meet and when?
We meet once a week on Wednesdays at 8 o'clock usually. And then during the course of the summer, we're going to have another series of roundtables. We're going to try to get all the way down in Southwest Virginia, end up in Terry Kilgore's area. Terry's the only delegate that has to go out of state to come back into state.
That's true.
On his way home.
Or Route 58, I think. Yes.
And then we're also going to do another one in Northern Virginia, because Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads and Norfolk, that area, are big job producers, so we want to focus on those.
And by the way, your website is appearing on screen where people can go to get more detailed information about your caucus. But congratulations on that. You talked about the low unemployment rate in your district, a lot of which has to do with federal employees, for example. And of course, as we know, this issue of sequestration is pending in Washington, D.C., and if that comes to pass, there could be a huge hit in terms of those employed by the federal government, in addition to the fact that Virginia has a wealth of military installations. I'm sure you're hearing about that, even though there's nothing the Virginia General Assembly can do about that.
Well, yes and no. Our good governor has done a very good job. We've set aside some money to help transition some of those folks, the federal contingency, as well as the best thing that we can do is what we're doing now. I'm going to allude back to the Business Development Caucus. I'm going to allude back to agriculture. I'm going to allude back to what we're doing to facilitate our own business aside from the federal government. The best thing that we can do, because when those folks lose their jobs, and I firmly believe the sequestration is going to come, you can only spend so much money before you have to stop. It doesn't matter if you're the federal government or the Commonwealth of Virginia. And those folks are going to lose their jobs, and we need to make sure that the Virginia economy is on its way to help absorb some of those folks so that they can find jobs and get back on their feet. I mean, yesterday I was at the farm, and a gentleman showed up who worked for the propane company that we use. He was let go of the port. He was port security. He went on, and rather than just waiting, he searched around and he ended up working for the propane company. And he doesn't make as much as he used to as he did for port security, but he's doing well, and he likes his job. And those are the types of things why we need to keep our private industry moving forward. Keep encourage the private industry, encourage business development. So when those folks lose their jobs, hopefully the Commonwealth and our own economy can help absorb some of that. We're not going to be able to get it all, obviously. I mean, there's a lot of jobs that are dependent upon the federal government, but we're hoping that we can help facilitate private industry to absorb some of those folks if they lose their jobs.
You mentioned the Business Development Caucus working with the State Corporation Commission. I think there's also an initiative that would allow electronic filings for small businesses. And as I recall, a few years ago, there was a move to do away with some of the burdensome requirements at the State Corporation Commission, especially for small businesses.
Yeah, and actually my colleague David Ramadan, whose district actually is where my family farm is, his district's only about 25-30 minutes from me, so it's nice. We've gotten to know each other very, very well. He's an excellent person, and very knowledgeable. And what we're trying to do with that bill is we are trying to make the SEC part of the business one-stop, so that as a business owner, if I'm going, I can take care of it all on one website. And currently, it's going to take, I think it's going to take 3 years for us to incorporate, because obviously with electronics and servers and all of this complicated electronic equipment and websites and language, computer language, it's going to take some time to really make it almost a seamless website. But that's our goal, is one business can go to the business one-stop and take care of all of their needs.
And I'm sure that same emphasis is placed upon helping those veterans who are returning from Iraq and Afghanistan and from other theaters to be able to become entrepreneurs when they come back.
Oh, absolutely. I believe, especially as things wind down overseas, we are going to have to do more to help our veterans. And we have, in the course of our roundtables this year, there's a couple of groups out there that help veterans find employment. And we are working with Leader Cox to help facilitate, so that those folks, we're going to have those folks give a presentation at each roundtable as well, so that folks know that there are veterans out there that can fill their needs. I mean, for instance, my mechanic is a Vietnam vet. He served 2 tours over there. Then he served as a Marine in the White House.
Oh, wow.
And let's just put it this way. My shop is as neat as it can possibly get, and he is the one man that shows up for work all the time, on time. And, you know, those veterans that come over with skills. They come back with skills, and skills that we can use and utilize, and we must help them find jobs, absolutely.
Now, how critical is transportation to maintaining the business-friendly environment that the Commonwealth still enjoys, even though it has come down a notch or two as number one? And talk to us a little bit about what's going on in terms of transportation funding this session.
Transportation funding can be a sticky wicket, so to speak. We have, for instance, the district that I represent, we have, I believe it's 50 or 60% of our folks commute out of the district. A lot of folks in my district would not like to see new roads. They would just like to see the roads that we have paved. And that seems to be the biggest issue that we have, is maintaining funds into our maintenance fund. The governor's plan does a very good job of it. However, the governor's plan does have issues that do affect some of my constituents, and we are in the process of amending that bill to help facilitate some of that. Like, for instance, when the governor removes the gas tax and raises the sales tax, that technically is revenue neutral. However, he leaves in the on-road fuel tax, diesel tax. And the reason for that, I understand, is we have a lot of folks that travel through, and a lot of truckers that travel through, and those are the folks that do a lot of damage to the highways, and I completely understand that. However, when you deal with agriculture as I do, my truck runs on-road diesel. So they're doing some things to help facilitate some of those, and I'm hoping very much so that in the next couple of days we can have a bill that helps facilitate some of those concerns and helps provide more funding for our transportation needs, because they're absolutely needed. Once you get out of my district, you get into Northern Virginia, and they're very concerned about that. And some of my folks, go into D.C. It's a 2-hour commute for them.
Sure. I take it there's another concern relating to a bill pending before Congress that has languished there from some time, which would garner revenues of about $250 to $300 million per year, with the Fairness and Equity Act that will allow the states to tax internet retail online sales. And I know there's some concern about the ability of the federal government to act quickly.
Well, as we've seen over the last, quite a few years, that it's very hard for the federal government to act quickly. They're not as efficient as we are in the Commonwealth. And the governor's plan accounts for some of that income, and I believe that income or that revenue stream will be very beneficial. And if we could dedicate it to transportation, it would do us a lot of good. VDOT, Governor McDonald has done a very good job, in my opinion, of making the Virginia state government, or the government of the Commonwealth, as efficient as we can. He's audited VDOT, I don't know how many times. VDOT has actually gone down in the number of folks that we employ from like 10,000 to 7,000, and they're still getting the job done. So there's only so much you can shake off before you've reached the core, and I think we've reached the core. So now we have to work at facilitating revenue streams such as the Equity Fairness Act, so that we can pay for our roads and fill in those potholes.
And of course, the other way to ensure that new businesses come to the Commonwealth and we keep those that are here is to have a workforce ready employee base. And I know the community colleges in your district play a great role in doing that.
Oh, huge. We've got, I represent Germanic Community College as well as Lord Fairfax Community College. Last year I spoke about our healthcare system. Right. This year I learned a very interesting fact that thanks to Governor McDonald and legislation that we've passed over the last 3 or 4 years, we can now track a student all the way through high school, through college, through community college, and through the 4-year, and see where they end up. And what we found is, especially through Germana, those that ended up with career technical skills started out $13,000 more than those that did a 2+2, and then went into the workforce.
Wow, $13,000.
So over the course of an education, and that's one of the things that the Business Development Caucus we're working on as well, is workforce development, because not everybody's made for a 4-year college. I have 2 young men that work for me. Both are now going to go on to diesel mechanic school. They're going to be excellent mechanics. They're going to make a good, solid living, and not everybody's going to end up being a CEO. And what we're trying to do is facilitate those folks and help them and encourage them to hey, you're not necessarily, if you don't believe you're made up for, if you believe that you're not going to go to a 4-year college, let's give you some skills that you can make a living at. And those skills are absolutely needed. Plus, I mean, if you look at cars these days, tractors these days, I mean, they're getting so much more complicated. My tractor has GPS and Bluetooth and everything else. Of course, I spend a lot of time on it. Right. But, a mechanic that's going to work on that has to have necessary computer skills as well. It's not just a diesel engine anymore like it was in the 70s and 80s. You can fix those with duct tape. Now you've got to have a computer system and everything else. And those folks that work on them are highly talented and highly skillful. And
of course, even though the unemployment rate for the Commonwealth is about 5.6%, maybe lower in your district, there are still those who are unfortunate and who have lost jobs. And of course, retraining at the community college level is a great opportunity for them.
Oh, absolutely. And they offer, I know Germana and Lord Fairfax offer great programs for that. And I'll go back to healthcare again. Sure. There are folks that are getting their RN degrees to help fill the needs that we have in our healthcare system. And so those folks getting the retraining they need is an absolute necessity for them. And it's great to see. Our community colleges, because of the way they are set up, they are much more adept at working with the business community to help fulfill the needs of the business community with a well-trained and highly educated workforce. And they can change much, much quicker than some of our 4-year universities, so that we can have an educated workforce whether we're in the computer and technical fields or going into healthcare.
And you mentioned the 2+2 program for those who do want to go beyond the community college level, and I believe there's a TAG program, the Tuition Assistance Grant Program. Talk a little bit about that.
And I will commend the governor on this. He is raising that, or at least he would like to raise it, and I'm hoping we can fit it into our budget. Fortunately, when you have to balance your budget, you have to make sacrifices here and there in order to accomplish some of your goals. And the governor, in his wisdom, has increased the TAG grant program for folks to go to private colleges, and I think he's raising it from $2,800 to $3,000. And some of our private schools Shenandoah University is one that comes to mind. Tracy Fitzsimmons does a fantastic job of running that place, and the Harry F. Bird School of Business is a great school, and folks can take advantage of the TAG program and utilize what that university has to offer. And there's private schools all across the Commonwealth that are just as good. I just have a lot of close dealings with that one particularly because I went there for a couple of years.
All right. And of course, the predicate for all of this is K through 12, and the governor has some initiatives there, including a pay raise for teachers.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting to see how the localities deal with it, because that 2% pay raise also includes asking the localities to come up with another 2%. So the great thing that I enjoy about that particular pay raise is it is going to go to the folks that absolutely need it. It is going to go to the teachers. And those are the folks that work with our kids every day, and those are the folks that absolutely do deserve a raise, as well as some of our support. I mean, your bus drivers and your janitors and your teachers are the folks that are down on the ground working it out, and they're the ones that over the course of the last 4 years and in the downturn of our economy that really sacrificed to keep our kids educated. And I think this is the governor's way of saying thank you.
And of course, more accountability comes with that in terms of the reformation of teacher contracts and their probationary periods.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you're going to make improvements, you need to make sure people are held accountable for what they do. And the governor, in his wisdom, and the Republican leadership in general, firmly believes that those that teach that do really, really well should be rewarded, and those that aren't necessarily performing up to standards need to be held accountable for that.
And that includes now grading the schools on
a
a criteria that everybody
Absolutely.
can understand,
and
from A through F.
And I think that's what it is. It is, in my opinion, it seems to be more of a clarification than anything else. There have been some points brought up in regards to that bill about single school districts and things, but we'll have to work on those. But clarifying it for the parent, I believe, is something that can be a benefit to our school system, so parents understand exactly where their school stands. And while I agree that a lot of parents are very engaged, hopefully we can get more parents engaged in their education and their kids' education.
Well, thank you for being here. Delegate Michael Webert.
Thank you very much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.
Mm-hmm.